There is a question people ask quietly, mostly to themselves. Late at night when the world has gone still and the weight of other people's opinions presses heaviest. They wonder if something is wrong with them. They wonder if their comfort in solitude is evidence of damage, deficiency, or failure. Society speaks loudly and clearly on this matter. Isolation is suspect, and those who choose it are either broken or hiding something. The world rewards connection, celebrates togetherness, and treats aloneness as a symptom requiring intervention. But the question itself contains a flaw. It assumes that being a loner is inherently problematic, that the absence of constant social engagement signals dysfunction. It treats solitude as a single condition, when, in reality, there are two entirely different states that share the same surface appearance. One is chosen, the other is suffered. One creates space, the other creates emptiness. The difference between them is not visible from the outside, but it determines everything. Being alone and feeling lonely are not the same thing. This is not wordplay. It is a fundamental distinction that most people collapse into a single judgment. Being alone is a condition of the environment. Feeling lonely is a condition of the psyche. One can exist without the other. You can stand in a crowded room and feel profoundly isolated. You can spend days without human contact and feel entirely at peace. The confusion arises because society measures well-being by proximity and assumes that distance equals distress. For those who have lived through fractured relationships, unbalanced dynamics, or social environments that demanded performance over presence, solitude often arrives not as loss, but as relief. It is not the absence of people, it is the absence of noise. After months or years of navigating expectations, managing others' emotions, or sustaining connections that felt more like obligations than exchanges, stepping back becomes a form of recalibration. The silence is not empty, it is clarifying. This is where the question begins to collapse. Being a loner is not inherently bad because it is not inherently anything. It is a position, not a pathology. What matters is not whether someone spends time alone, but why they do so and what it produces. If solitude drains you, confines you, and leaves you cycling through thoughts that never resolve, then yes, something requires attention. But if it restores you, sharpens your thinking, and allows you to operate from a place of internal stability rather than external validation, then it is functioning exactly as it should. The difference lies in agency. Chosen solitude is strategic. Imposed isolation is punitive. One expands your capacity, the other shrinks it. People who deliberately withdraw after recognizing the cost of empty interactions are not avoiding life. They are protecting the integrity of their attention and energy. They are filtering, they are setting thresholds, they are refusing to dilute themselves in relationships that require constant performance and yield no actual substance. This is not coldness, it is discernment, and it is often misunderstood precisely because it challenges the assumption that human worth is measured by social frequency. The world insists that being alone too much will erode your social skills, make you strange, turn you into someone who no longer knows how to connect. But this assumes that connection for its own sake is always valuable, that any interaction is better than none, that the maintenance of social ability justifies the expenditure of time and self. It does not. There are people who will drain you more efficiently than any amount of solitude ever could. There are social environments that demand you suppress clarity in favor of comfort, that reward agreeableness over honesty, that mistake politeness for depth. Spending time in those spaces does not preserve your humanity, it fragments it. And walking away from them is not to retreat, it is boundary enforcement. This is the first conceptual shift. Solitude is not the opposite of connection, it is the opposite of compulsion. When you stop needing people to feel whole, you start choosing them more carefully. When you stop using relationships to fill voids, you start noticing which ones actually add something and which ones simply occupy time. The loner is not someone who cannot connect. They are someone who will not connect without reason, and this creates a paradox that unsettles people. The person who is comfortable alone becomes harder to manipulate, harder to impress, harder to guilt into participation. They do not need your approval. They do not fear your absence. They do not mistake proximity for intimacy or frequency for loyalty. This makes them unpredictable in a world that runs on social obligation and unspoken agreements. It makes them seem detached when, in reality, they are simply no longer operating from deficit. There is power in that position, but it is quiet power. It does not announce itself. It does not argue. It simply stops responding to pressures that no longer make sense. The loner who has arrived at this place through intentional withdrawal has learned something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: that you can sustain your own presence, that you do not require constant validation to know you are real. That silence is not the same as emptiness, and being alone is not the same as being abandoned. This does not mean solitude is universally optimal or that human connection is irrelevant. It means the equation has been rebalanced. The baseline shifts. Instead of needing people and occasionally wanting solitude, you start from a foundation of internal stability and selectively incorporate others when the exchange is mutual, intentional, and aligned. This is not isolation, it is sovereignty. But there are risks, and they should be named without alarm. Spending too long in total withdrawal can weaken the muscles of social engagement. Not because solitude is toxic, but because unused skills atrophy. If you spend years alone and then decide you want deep connection again, you may find the bridge harder to cross than it once was. Not impossible, just harder. This is not a moral failure. It is a mechanical consequence, and it can be managed by maintaining a few minimal points of contact, even if rarely activated. The healthiest version of this is not absolute isolation, it is optionality. Knowing you can connect if you choose to, but not needing to in order to function. Having one or two relationships that are genuinely reciprocal, not transactional. People who understand that your absence is not rejection and your presence is not performance. This creates redundancy without dependency. It keeps the door open without forcing you to walk through it constantly. The trap is not solitude itself, it is the loss of awareness. If being alone becomes something you hide behind instead of something you choose, if it stops being a position and starts being a prison, then the equation has inverted. The same state that once protected you can begin to confine you. The difference is internal, not external. It shows up in how you feel when you imagine re-engaging, relief or dread, clarity or fog, freedom or fear. This is why the question is poorly formed. Asking if being a loner is bad assumes the answer is universal. It is not. For some, it is the only way to recover coherence after years of compromising it. For others, it is a holding pattern that needs eventual recalibration. For a few, it is a sustainable way of life that produces more clarity and fulfillment than any amount of forced socialization ever could. What determines the outcome is not the solitude itself, but the relationship you have with it. If you are choosing it from a place of strength, using it to build something rather than hide from something, and maintaining enough flexibility to adjust when needed, then no, there is nothing wrong with being a loner. You are not broken. You are not deficient. You are operating from a different set of priorities, and those priorities are valid. The world will not always understand this. It will call you distant. It will suggest you are missing out. It will imply that something happened to make you this way, as if choosing solitude requires justification or trauma as explanation. You do not owe an explanation. You do not need to defend the fact that you function better when you are not constantly managing other people's expectations of who you should be. Being a loner is not a problem. It is a position. And like any position, its value is determined by whether it serves you or confines you, whether it amplifies your capacity or diminishes it, whether it creates space for what matters or simply avoids what is difficult. The answer is not in how much time you spend alone. It is in whether that time leaves you stronger, clearer, and more capable of engaging with life on terms that actually make sense to you. If it does, then no, it is not a bad thing. It is exactly what it needs to be.